Hello everyone, it is Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Thank you for joining me in my little corner of the internet, and today we're going to do our 15 inks 30 days inks 6 through 10. So I'll be swatching them in my Hobonichi A5 notebook, and then I'll also be doing a swatch and a doodle in my Hemlock and Oak notebook, which has 70 GSM archivist paper. Let's just get right into it. So I will be doing swatching with my Browse ornament nib, and this is in the 3mm size. And the first pen and ink combination is, oh my gosh, I've already lost the pen. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay, because I was using it for work today. The first pen and ink combination, or pen and ink combination number 6, is my Leonardo Momento 0 in the Andromeda, and I have it inked with Wearingeul Soyoungwije. So I'm going to shake this up a bit. Now, I was given this sample by a pen friend, and I'm just using it now. And I can't believe I didn't use this sooner, because do you see how beautiful this purple is with that shimmer? It just looks like a starry night. Oh my goodness. Oh, and I thought, I mean, the purple isn't an exact match for the pen, but wow, it is stunning. Adding some little dots here. Oh, gorgeous. So the ink is Wearingeul Soyoungwije, and the pen is my Leonardo Momento 0 in Andromeda. And this has an extra fine nib. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it so much already. So now we're in my Hemlock and Oak, and I've also got different papers here as well. So the first swatch I'm going to do is on the Hemlock and Oak archivist paper, and so far I am loving this paper. And then we've got Tomoe River paper, and then Rhodia, and Midori, oops, and then we've got Eroful, Onion Skin, and then Yama-Budo Bank, and lastly bank paper. I love seeing all these swatches all in one place, and then seeing how they dry. I don't see this one having too much chromo shading, but the shimmer, you know what, it actually looks darker on the Rhodia paper, but looking lovely on all of the other papers. Stunning. So I'm going to be doing a doodle or a Zentangle from Varney Kekarney. I really like their doodles because they give such great instructions that I feel like anyone could follow. And what I like about these as well is that you can really choose the amount of detail. Oh my gosh, these are not straight. The amount of detail that you'd like, because there's so many variations of doodles that you could do. Like, look at the shimmer that you're seeing in that one already. And then I'll do the one right next to it. So I'll do 2 here. But then this one will be slightly different. So and then we've got that this way, so it's going to look like a circle when you've got all 4 quadrants together. And the thing about these Zentangles is that they are never going to be as perfect as you'd like them to be. See, like that is not as big a swirl as I'd like, but it'll be cool once it's all done. These two were such a joy to write with. I loved writing with this. The shimmer was excellent in this pen. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Momento 0 a 9. And there's the swatch, or the paper swatches for Soyoungwije, and I really like the base color, the way that it looks on the onion skin and the Yama-Budo bank and even the Tomoe River paper. It definitely looks darker and a little bit more flat actually on the Midori paper and the Rhodia paper. And interesting on the Irofil, it really has this kind of matte texture to it. Really, really interesting. And then if we move my archivist notebook down, take a look at this doodle or Zentangle. I made a couple of mistakes in here, but I'm not too bothered by that, because I mean the point of Zentangles is not necessarily for perfection. It's really about the process and enjoying the process, and I really enjoyed how this pen performed, and the shimmer in this Wearingeul ink is fantastic. So that is my Leonardo Momento Zero Andromeda with Wearingeul Soyoungwije. Okay, pen and ink combination number 7 is my Narwhal Voyage Tromso, and this has a fine nib, and I'm going to ink it with Moonlit Rose Garden. So it's already inked, and it was actually really difficult to fill. Why did I choose such a small sample to fill my piston filler? So let's get a bit on my brows ornament nib here, and I have to remind myself to do the numbers because I just want to get straight into the swirl or the swatch. But I've received a few Kitty Inkpot inks. I did receive a few before Christmas, and they've been so fun to use. Like, you'd think they're going to be really light. Some were, but the shading in them is incredible. Now, I mean, I know they look a little light and they seem a little light, but I thought they were lovely. Gorgeous. So the ink is a Kitty Inkpot, Moonlit, Rose Garden, and this is in my Narwhal Voyage in the Tromso, and this has a fine nib. Look at that. It matches with some of the blues that are in there. Like, look at that. That's stunning. Gorgeous. So let's do the paper swatches. So let's go ahead and paint on the swatches here. So again, the first one is the archivist paper, and I'm already amazed at how different this ink looks from swatching versus writing, and the shading in this already is beautiful. So I know we're going to get some great chroma shading effects in the different papers here. But also, I thought I've used some of the Kitty Inkpot inks in like extra fine nibs, and they still shaded beautifully. So I'm excited to see what this is going to look like in a fine nib. You can already see on the papers how, like for example, on the Rhodia and even the Midori, the different colors that are coming out. Absolutely stunning. I'm going to add a little bit more here to see some of the pooling. And then I'll show you once that is all dried. So the Zentangle I'm doing today is also from Varney Kakarni. I'm going to pick, say, over 4 grids here, and then it's going to be a line through the middle, and then a line like that, and then lines to follow the shape of the wavy line, which are not perfect. One of the things about this is that you shouldn't expect it to be perfect. And then lines here, and then one line underneath. And I think I'm going to add actually something different. I'm going to add, just for a way to use more of that ink to see the shading. And then we'll just do it one more time. And you could see how not perfect this is. And that's absolutely okay. It's just about the practice and not about the perfection. This ink is stunning, and I chose a lovely juicy fine nib which shows off all of the beautiful shading of this ink. I give the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Narwhal Voyage Tromso a 9. Now, the way that this shades on all of the different paper swatches is so cool, and that's what I've loved about Kitty Inkpot ink so far, is just the shading that happens. Even when I did it with a Browse ornament nib up here, you can see the pink and the purple, but then in the different papers as well, I think the most interesting one, I mean, Onion Skin, you can really see the, excuse me, all the pink throughout. Not as much on the Aerofil paper. Now, the Archivist paper is actually showing shading really well too, but I think my favorite in terms of how the shading is showing is probably the Tomoe River paper and even the Midori. Beautiful. And then when we look at the doodle here, another one by Varney Kakarni. Now, I mean, there's a little bit of, I guess, shadow or bleed through from the next page, but it's not too bad. And I love the way that there is shading showing here. However, one thing I will say is that while it is a beautiful ink, you don't get the beautiful pinks and purples in a fine nib. Maybe if you had a broad nib or even a stub nib, you might get some more of those chroma shading properties, but not so much in a fine nib or even an extra fine nib. So that is my Narwhal Voyage Tromso with Kitty Inkpot Moonlit Rose Garden. All right, here we go. Pen and ink combination number 8 is my Mayfair pens in Noldor in Valinor, and I have it inked with Diamine Cappadocia. This was I guess an exclusive for Galen leather, and I can't wait to use this. So this is number 8, and I always have to remember that I have to write the number and then do the swatchy swirl thing. I remember when I purchased this ink, I bought this basically sight unseen, or basically just depending on the swatches on Galen Leather's website, and it's an incredible ink. And somebody mentioned in a previous video that I don't like green. I don't normally reach for green inks, but here we have a green ink. I do surprise myself sometimes. So we've got the ink is Diamine Cappadocia, and the pen is my Mayfair Pens Noldor in Valinor, and this has an extra fine imperial nib. Basically that means is I guess the right side up, it is basically a cursive smooth italic, but then the reverse side it writes like a medium. So fun. So now we'll paint on the different swatches here just to see if this ink does react differently. Now, I don't think it does, but I also want to see the effect on all of the different papers. I mean, yes, it looks a little bit like a science experiment, but once this journal is done, it just looks so cool flipping through all the pages, seeing all the doodles, and seeing the way that the ink reacts on all of the different papers. It's my little art / science project. I'm doing another design by Varney Kakarni, and I'm trying to think of the best way to do this because I want to make use of this nib. So first I draw the square, and then I split the square into its 4 different quadrants, and then in each quadrant there is a line. And then from there, then there's diagonal lines. Oh, I see. And then more diagonal lines. And then, oh, and then I think that's it. And then that's it. But I'm going to add maybe color in this section using the reverse to color in that section. Okay, let's try it one more time. What I really like about these doodles or Zentangles is that I want it to really showcase the properties of the ink, but also make use of any special nib grinds that I do have. The Imperial nib grind is actually really fun because you can then reverse it and use the other side to fill in. There we go. How cool. What a fun ink and nib combo. The Imperial nib, which is the cursive smooth italic, and then the broad on the other side, it showed off the shimmer and sheen of this ink so well. I gave the ink a 9 because it's just stunning, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Mayfair Pen's Noldor an 8. Look at how Diamine Cappadocia reacts on all the different papers. It looks so much more brown on the onion skin, and then you don't see much of the sheen happening on the Rhodia paper. There's definitely a little bit more sheen happening on the Midori, the Archivist, and the Tomoe River paper, and even the Yama-Budo Bank and Bank. Very tiny sheen happening here on a Rofel, and I don't normally like sheen, but when you've got so much shimmer, basically overpowering that sheen, I don't mind it too much. And then when we go into our Zentangle here, I have to admit, this was probably one that I didn't enjoy doing as much. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the comfort level of the pen holding it for so long. But maybe it was also some of the sheen that was coming out that was giving me a headache. I'm not exactly sure, but it still looks cool once it's completely done. So that is my my Mayfair pens in Noldor Valinor with Diamine Cappadocia. Pen and ink combination number 9 is my newest Platinum 3776 in the Suruga Bay. This is a Hachimanjia collaboration, and I have it inked with Kitty Inkpot Cloud Echo. So here we have the number 9. Ooh, I've got a lot of ink in the nib right now. It does look a little similar to Moonlit Rose Garden, but I feel like it looks more green in the swatch, but then when I write with it, it does look very similar. But it's so pretty. I'm actually a really big fan of most of the Kitty Inkpot inks that I've tried. The ones that I've tried just shade beautifully, and actually I haven't had too many issues with them in my really fine nibs. So this is Kitty Inkpot Cloud Echo, and this is in my Platinum. My apologies, not Hachimanjia, but it's Kobayashi. And this is Suruga Bay. And this has a fine nib. Look at the way that that is already drying. Gorgeous. Now I'll paint the swatches in my Hemlock and Oak on the Archivist paper. And the Kitty Inkpot inks are the ones that I feel like show the most difference between the papers. I find that so interesting that, one, they're beautiful chromo shaders, and two, that different properties come out with the different papers. Now, this doesn't happen with all inks, but I'm finding that the ones that are chromo shaders seem to have the most differences in the papers. But it's just such a pretty ink. Love them. I can't wait until those dry. We've got another Zentangle that I'm going to be doing by Barney Kakarni. And this one's one I haven't tried before, so we'll see how well it works. Not that there's anything wrong with the pattern, it's me, the person who's trying to execute the pattern. Then leaves. I guess if you think about it that way, leaves on the corners. And then 3 little circles, 1, 2, 3. And then 3 more circles, 1, 2, 3. Okay, cute. Let's see if I can do that one more time, but this time it's going to go in the other direction. So circle in the middle, and then, oh, it's kind of like a rosebud on one side. And then you've got your leaves. And then here, 1, 2, 3 circles. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's cute. Some may find this too light, but I really enjoyed the crisp and smooth fine nib with this lighter ink. I gave the ink a 10 because it's stunning, the flow a 9 because even in the fine platinum nib it still flowed well, and I gave the comfort level of the pen a 9. How beautiful does Cloud Echo look on all of those papers? I have found that the Kitty Inkpot inks that I have been trying look so cool on all of the different papers, and you really see different chroma shading properties popping out in each of these. I love the kind of brown beige that's coming out in here, and then it definitely looks more yellow obviously on the Madoromi paper, but even a lot of that yellow is coming out in the onion skin, the Yama-Budo bank, and the bank. Not so much on the Irofil paper, and not even that much on the Tomoe River paper, which is interesting. So really fun ink. And then when we go to our lovely doodle, I loved this one. Yes, I made a few mistakes in here, but I loved this one because even with the fine nib and the lighter ink, the pen just kept up with it, and I didn't have any hard starts. I didn't have any issues with it being too light. It turned out really well. Now, this is one of those instances, and I'm kind of showing tomorrow's ink, or ink 10. This was the only instance where there's a tiny bit more shadowing here and a tiny little bit of bleed through here, but that's the only instance of it. Every other one has been so good with the bleed through and the shadowing on this archivist paper. So that is my platinum Kobayashi Suruga Bay with Kitty Inkpot Cloud Echo. Oh, I love this one. So now we have pen and ink pairing number 10. We have my Pilot Kakuno in the Madoromi pink, and this is currently inked with Pilot Iroshizuku Yama-Budo. Thank you so much to pen friend Nancy for sending this tiny bottle through. I am so appreciative of everyone in this community who is just so kind and for reaching out and sending just sending love and gifts and just wanting to share their stash, really. And I also appreciate the fact that these bottles from Pilot Iroshizuku come in these smaller 15 ml bottles, because I do not need a massive bottle of Yama-Budo. 15 mils is perfect for me. I almost wish most ink companies did smaller bottles like this, but yeah. Oh, look at that. Isn't that stunning? Absolutely stunning. So we have Pilot Iroshizuku Yama-Budo in my Pilot Kakuno in the Madoromi pink. And this has the fine nib. Definitely not a match, but using a Pilot ink in a Pilot pen, gorgeous. All right, so we're now going to go ahead and paint on the Hemlock and Oak paper, the archivist paper. This is Tomoe River paper. These are actually leftover sheets from my last pen and ink journal. Then we have Rhodia paper, and then the creamy Midori. Then Irofil. Look at how bright that already comes off on the Irofil paper. And then we have onion skin, Yama-Budo bank, and lastly bank. And then I'll show you what these look like once they're all dried. So let's go ahead and do my doodle or Zentangle. This is another one inspired by Wearingeul, and starting off with a square, and then I guess curved lines down like this, and then a little swirl. And I always have trouble with these. I don't know why. What direction am I going in? Oh no, and I think I made it too. Oh yeah. Like, look at the difference between the two. And then I gotta do little ones down here at the bottom. Yeah, those swirls, I don't know what it is. I always have trouble with like one direction versus another. And then doing 3 lines this way around. All right, let's do one more. And just to make sure that I can get the orientation of those curves correct, because wow, that was a struggle. Okay, so hold on. Oh, I still think that's too many. So 1. Okay, that might match. Yeah, okay, that looks better. This is the thing with the doodles or Zentangles, and those that are not touching, they're never going to be perfect for me. It's just about the fun and the intention of doing every single line. That kind of looks like a monkey's face now. Pilot inks with Pilot pens are chef's kiss. I love the base color, but it might be too much sheen for me. So I'm gonna give the ink a little bit lower. I'm gonna give it an 8, but the flow was perfect at 10, and the comfort level of the Kakuno a 9. So there's Pilot Iroshizuku Yama-Budo on all of the papers, and you can really see the sheen popping out on the Archivist paper. And this is where it actually had maybe just a tad bit of bleed through here, and even down here when I did it with the Browse ornament nib, there's a tiny bit of bleed through, but very well performing Archivist paper. But there isn't a lot of chroma shaping happening here, but you see how different it looks on the Irofil paper. So bright on that one, and then on the Midori it looks darker, and even darker on the Archivist paper here, but a lot of sheen, which is probably the deal breaker here for me. But then if we go to this Zentangle, I have to say that while I enjoyed the writing experience, where I love the Kakuno, I love the nib, and I loved the overall ink experience, this particular doodle I was not a fan of. I think curvy lines and swirls like that, I have trouble with. I couldn't, like, if you look here, I had trouble trying to get them consistent, and then I think I finally got into a rhythm by the 3rd row, but it still caused me trouble just because I didn't think I could get my swirls right, so I had to find my rhythm. But anyway, there is my Pilot Kakuno in the Madoromi pink with Pilot Iroshizuku Yama-Budo. So there are all of my pen and ink combinations for inks 6 through 10. Which do you think was my favorite? I really loved my Platinum Suruga Bay with the Kitty Inkpot Cloud Echo, and I really loved my Leonardo Momento Zero with that Wearingeul ink. It's just such a stunning, beautiful purple ink, but I really don't need to add any more of those to my collection. But I also really loved Moonlit Rose Garden. I'm a big fan of these Kitty Inkpot inks. They have actually really worked well for me. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know down below, and watch out for the next in this series, inks 11 through 15, which should be coming out in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much, and have yourselves a great day.